Have you ever found yourself suddenly aware that your brain is thinking about thinking itself? You might be riding the subway or just laying there in bed when you realize your mind is bouncing between totally different things all at once. Yesterday is embarrassing moments. Tomorrow is plans, what you need to buy at the store, those heavy thoughts about life, its meaning, and random stuff that doesn't even make sense. Your brain basically decided it was bored and turned itself into a three-ring circus. What's really crazy is how normal this has become for us. Complete quiet, actual silence, now feels weird and wrong. Like we're missing something important. Like we're failing at life if our minds are and constantly chewing on something every single minute of the day. But listen to this. You're not messed up for wanting some peace and quiet in your head. You're not being lazy when you need your mind to just chill out for a while. You're just being human. Think of thinking like a really sharp knife. It's useful when you need it. But imagine carrying that knife around in your hands all day long without putting it down. Eventually, you're going to accidentally cut yourself with it. The reality is that you weren't built to spend your whole life stuck inside your own head. Most of the time, you're not even actually solving problems up there. You're just going in circles, playing the same scenes over and over, having fake arguments with people who aren't even there. It wears you out, and half the time you don't even realize it's happening. This isn't going to be some talk about emptying your mind completely or sitting like a monk on top of a mountain somewhere. This is about something way more practical and real. It's about getting that being mentally busy all the time doesn't actually mean you're more aware of what is going on. A lot of times, it is actually keeping you from seeing clearly. If they've been feeling mentally wiped out, restless, or like they lost the ability to just exist without constantly thinking about something, then you'll want to keep reading. Because once you get why your brain works this way, you'll see mental quiet in a completely different light. Most people have no idea how noisy their thoughts have gotten because it's been this way for such a long time that it just seems normal now. But just because you reuse to something doesn't mean it's good for you. We've made racing thoughts seem normal the same way we've made working too much seem normal. Like being mentally exhausted is something to be proud of. If your brain isn't always buzzing with worry and trying to solve problems, you feel like you're falling behind somehow. Like you're not getting enough done. But real understanding never comes from a mind that is making too much noise. It comes from those times when you finally stop trying so hard to figure out every little thing. Think about this for a second. When have your best ideas ever actually come to you? Was it when you were freaking out and overthinking everything? Probably not. They probably came when you were in the shower, taking a walk, staring up at the ceiling, or just spacing out. Not because you were forcing your brain to work harder, but because you finally stopped long enough for your deeper understanding to come up to the surface. Your mind is like one of those snow globe toys. If you keep shaking it all the time, you will never be able to see through all the swirling stuff inside. But if you just set it down and leave it alone for a minute, everything settles and you can see clearly again. Don't get me wrong, thinking itself isn't too bad. It's the never-ending thinking that is the problem. When you think constantly, it all just becomes background noise. The more noise you've got going on, the less room there is for real awareness to show up. True awareness isn't something you have to force to happen. It's what's already there underneath everything once all the mental dust has a chance to settle. Here is where things get really interesting. When you stop grabbing onto every single thought that pops up, you start seeing how most of them aren't even helpful. They old, recycled stuff you've already dealt with dozens of times before. They show up acting like they were urgent problems that need your attention right now. But really they just echoes. Leftover stress, half-finished worries that don't deserve to take up space in your head. You were never supposed to live your whole life up there in the mental movie theater. That's why being in nature feels so amazing. That's why music hits you differently when you stop trying to analyze it and just let yourself listen. That's why the best moments in your life don't come with your brain providing commentary the whole time. They come when you're actually present and experiencing what is happening right now. When you stop making your thoughts the star of the show, you start actually living your life again instead of just thinking about living it. Here, something nobody ever teaches you in school. Silence isn't just the absence of noise and activity. It is actually the doorway to real awareness. When your mind is constantly going, your attention is always somewhere else, 2 steps ahead or behind where your body actually is. Lost in the past, worried about the future, having imaginary conversations, making endless to-do lists that go on forever. You almost never really where your feet are standing. Picture this. You could be walking through a beautiful park on a perfect day. But if your mind is busy replaying some argument you had 3 days ago, your nervous system can to tell the difference between that memory and reality. As far as your body knows, you're still in that fight right now. That is how much power your thoughts have over you. But here is the thing that might surprise you. Your thoughts can only control your life if you let them run wild without any supervision. You're not helpless against them. You're not stuck with all that mental noise forever. You've just gotten into the habit of reacting to every single thought like it is some kind of urgent notification on your phone that you have to check immediately. Most of the time, you really don't. You know how sometimes a random negative thought just pops into your head and suddenly your whole mood changes. But if you actually try to figure out where that thought came from, you realize it came from absolutely nowhere. There was no real reason for it to show up. It's really just a pattern, a cycle that keeps repeating itself, like a muscle that got way too built up from being used too much. This is exactly why being still and quiet becomes so important. But being still doesn't mean you just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. It's not about being lazy or checking out. It is about disconnecting your sense of who you are from that voice in your head that never stops talking. You giving yourself enough space to realize something huge. You don't have to think through every single thing that happens to you. Some of your smartest choices, the ones that felt absolutely right in your bones, came from that quiet place inside you. You didn't spend forever analyzing every angle. You didn't convince yourself to do it or talk yourself out of it either. You simply knew what was right. That is the deeper wisdom that exists below all your regular thinking. It is not all over the place. It doesn't make a bunch of noise. It stays calm and steady. It's got its feet firmly planted on the ground, and it doesn't need you feeding it information every 2 seconds. And here is the thing that will totally change how you see everything. When you give yourself the okay to stop thinking constantly, you don't lose awareness of what is going on around you. Actually, you become way more aware. You start hearing things on a deeper level. You begin noticing stuff you've been completely missing. And life starts happening naturally without you having to control every tiny detail. Because real understanding doesn't come from forcing your brain to work overtime. It shows up when you finally quiet enough to hear what has been sitting there waiting for you all along. Let's get into something people rarely mention when they talk about thinking too much. It's not just about what thoughts are running through your head. It's about feeling like you have to mentally describe your whole life to yourself as it is happening. The moment you wake up, there's already some kind of conversation going on in there. You're eating your breakfast, and your brain is making comments about it. Even when you trying to chill out and relax, your thoughts are asking questions like, am I doing this the right way? Should I be doing something different instead? It's like you're never actually by yourself because your mind has somehow convinced you that it always has to explain everything, put labels on everything, and judge every single second of your day. And all that constant chatter is just exhausting. It is actually pulling you away from really living your life. Because here is what is really true. There is a massive difference between actually being in the moment and being stuck in your head thinking about the moment. One of them feels as natural as breathing. The other one feels like someone is watching and judging everything you do. You don't need your mind working like some kind of security guard, constantly keeping track of everything, putting everything into categories, and breaking down your life like it is writing up some kind of official report. You're not a computer or a robot. You're a living, breathing person. You're not here to process what is happening around you like data. You're here to actually experience it and live it. And that is exactly why you're not meant to be thinking every waking moment. Because the more energy you put into describing what is happening to yourself, the less you actually showing up for it and being present. There are whole levels of awareness that only open up when you stop mentally running after them. Tiny changes in how your body feels, emotions that don't need to be fixed or solved, ideas that come up naturally on their own. It's like finally tuning into a radio station that was playing beautiful music underneath all the noise and static this whole time. This is where being present becomes really powerful, not in some mystical or abstract way, but in a down-to-earth, totally human way. Being present hooks you back up with your natural smarts, the kind of intelligence that doesn't need to make lists of pros and cons to know what feels right, the kind that doesn't feel rushed to say something just to avoid awkward silence, the kind that sees more, feels more, and doesn't react to every little thing. When you read truly present, you don't need your thoughts explaining what is happening, because you right there in the middle of it, living it. And once you get even a little taste of that clear-headedness, that inner quiet, that feeling like everything is enough just as it is, you'll start seeing just how much unnecessary mental noise you were carrying around for absolutely no good reason. You know what? It's really amazing. Most of the big breakthroughs that people are desperately trying to find, things like clarity, inner peace, confidence, these aren't things you have to add to your life from somewhere else. What naturally remains when you stop making everything so complicated inside your own head. We've been taught that success and happiness come from doing more stuff, making more detailed plans, and trying to mentally control how everything turns out. But the truth is, it's actually more about getting rid of all the mental clutter that is blocking you from what you already understand deep down, what you already sense in your gut, what you already are at your core. All that endless mental pressure to figure out your next step, to calculate every move before you make it. That is not real wisdom or insight. That is just stress and anxiety disguising themselves as making progress. And here, it's where things get really interesting and honest. The people who come across as the most solid, the most naturally attractive, the most genuinely peaceful and content, they're not spending every waking hour running mental marathons in their heads. They've just figured out how to trust their natural awareness without trying to control it or force it to work overtime. Look, thinking happens in a straight line. It's got a certain speed. It goes in specific directions. It follows patterns and rules. But real awareness, that is completely different. It's wide open, naturally quiet, and responds instantly to what is actually happening right now. It doesn't go chasing after things. Instead, it just watches and notices. It doesn't try to predict what is going to happen next. It simply responds to whatever is actually going on. And when you start living your life from that place of natural awareness instead of from endless thinking, something really subtle but incredibly powerful starts to shift. You stop feeling like you have to get ready for absolutely everything that might possibly happen. It's not because you suddenly stop caring about anything. It's because you actually trained yourself to be present enough to respond with clear thinking when things actually happen in real time. And that ability to be truly present, that's where your real strength and power actually live. You stop being 10 steps ahead in your imagination and start being right here, right now, in a way that feels solid and steady. You're not as quick to react to every little thing. You don't get drained as easily. And making decisions doesn't feel like you're trying to climb some huge mental mountain every single time. Instead, it becomes totally natural, like following your instincts, quick and clean and simple. But here is the part that might surprise you. You don't get access to this by trying even harder to be present or by forcing yourself to focus better. You get there by realizing something that is already true. You were already here. You were already present. You have to earn this inner quiet and stillness. You just need to stop running away from it and avoiding it. That's exactly why you were not supposed to be thinking every single moment of every day. The real wisdom and understanding you, really looking for ISN, to hiding somewhere in your next thought or buried in some future mental breakthrough. It's sitting there quietly underneath all your thoughts right now, just waiting patiently for you to stop long enough to actually notice it. It's been there the whole time. Let's just be completely honest about something. Silence and quiet have become really suspicious and weird in this world. If you were not talking, typing on your phone, tapping on screens, swiping through apps, or making plans for something, people automatically assume something must be wrong with you. And you probably feel that restless feeling too sometimes. Like you somehow falling behind in life just because your brain ISN trying to handle 100 different things at once, racing along at full speed. But what if silence and quiet weren't? Just empty space with nothing happening? What if that is actually where all the really important stuff starts to take place? You see, the issue isn't that you thinking itself is fine and normal. The problem is that nobody ever taught you how to listen to what life is actually telling you without your thoughts talking over it the whole time. There is a completely different level of experiencing life that most people never get to access, because their thoughts simply, one, get out of the way long enough for them to feel it and be aware of it. It shows up in that quiet moment between conversations when nobody is talking. It is there in that breath you take right before you're about to say something. It exists in that open space between different ideas where you're not reacting to anything, not making plans for anything, just staying awake and aware in whatever moment you're actually in. When you create that quiet space in your mind, something amazing happens. Your gut feelings get stronger. You act with confidence instead of doubting yourself. You stop putting on a show and become more genuine. Your listening skills improve. Your responses get better. You actually begin to like doing absolutely nothing. Not because you were being lazy, but because you finally stopped fighting against being still. Here is what most folks don't understand. You have to fill every single quiet moment with thoughts. Some of the biggest changes in your life will happen when you quit trying to think your way to the next stage. Instead, you start feeling your way there. The quiet holds its own kind of wisdom. There is a type of understanding that doesn't come through words. It comes through staying calm when something used to upset you. It comes through sleeping soundly at night, through taking slow, deep breaths, through being fully present in regular moments without trying to escape into your head. You have to stop thinking completely. You just need to quit treating your thoughts like they're the only voice that matters. When you make room, when you let awareness flow freely, even just a tiny bit, you will see that life has been trying to talk to you all along. And life doesn't yell at you. It speaks softly. Most people never experience this unusual type of freedom. It is not the kind that comes from finally hitting your targets or fixing what is wrong with you. It comes from understanding that you have to mentally chase after everything in your path. You need to grab onto every idea, react to every thought, or mentally pick apart every situation to live a life that has meaning. Not everything requires a thought. Some things just need you to be there. You have to form an opinion about every news story. You need to mentally practice every possible version of what might happen tomorrow. You have to read too much into the quiet moments during conversations. Sometimes there is just silence, and it's perfectly fine. We've been taught to think that our worth comes from being productive, even with our minds. Like if our brains aren't working hard, we must be slacking off. But true clarity doesn't scream at you like a task list. It flows through you like water when you stop trying to block it with too much analysis. This shift transforms your whole inner experience. When you start seeing thinking as a choice instead of something you have to do, when you finally begin trusting the space between your thoughts just as much as the thoughts themselves, you'll see that you become more steady. Not because you forced yourself to be that way, but because you were not burning up mental energy trying to control everything that doesn't need your control. You talk more slowly. You listen with more attention. You feel more connected to whatever you were doing, even if you were not doing anything at all. This is exactly why you were not meant to think constantly. Not because thinking is bad, but because peace doesn't fight for attention. It waits patiently, and it appears when you stop filling every quiet moment with mental chatter. So the next time you catch yourself hurrying to fill the silence, try letting it remain there just for a few extra seconds. Not to make something happen, but to finally remember what it feels like when nothing has to happen. Tell us, what activity naturally quiets your mind? Walking, cooking, listening to music, help others find their peace. If you found this video useful, please like it and subscribe to the channel. There are more videos on this channel that will help you become a better version of yourself.